Welcome to Nerdities. Bitches.
No topic is too absurd, no statement is too asinine, no questions too interesting. That's right, Nerdities interview show, returning guest edition. I, as ever, am Mike.
I am Justin.
And I'm Joe.
That's all you get host-wise. We're running slim, silent running tonight. Not really silent, that'd be dumb. Anyway, our guest, Justin Cook, promoting something new.
Yeah, Edge of Darkness. It's kind of a far future, just sci-fi thing. Biopunk, I guess, is the closest I can think of. My wife accuses me of inventing a subgenre here. So, basically, it's millions of years in the future. Humans have lived under the water, beneath the edge of darkness, which is the line in the ocean where the light doesn't penetrate any further. And so they've adapted to grow basically all their technology is biological. So they grow like a giant squid suit that encapsulates you, and you become the squid or you become the shark, whatever. And then you go out and you do your job, whatever that might be, picking sponges or doing whatever. And so basically, they're sun worshippers who haven't seen the sun in like 5 million years. And so it's finally time to go back and find the sun. And that's the basic premise of the story. We follow Hymo, who is sort of a just bottom tier guy doing the most dangerous, shitty work for no money. Pardon my French. And one of his friends commits suicide. And so he decides to lie about that so that his family will get the life insurance payout, basically. And that sort of sparks a series of events that lead to all kinds of cool stuff.
That sounds pretty high concept sci-fi. Compared to the last work you had was kind of fantasy-esque, right? Detective-esque?
Yeah, supernatural horror comedy kind of thing. They're very different. I mean, tonally, they're completely different. This one is not funny at all. It's not trying to be funny. It's also much shorter, so you've got that going for it. It's going to be 6 issues when it's completed instead of 36 for SWAT. So it's a nice, simple, pretty straightforward story.
You going to try and tell shorter stories now after telling a nice, long one?
No, the project I'm on right now was originally conceived as a 7-novel series, so I'm going to trim that down, but it's still going to be pretty enormous, probably. It just kind of worked. I actually wrote 18 issues for this thing, and then the editor was like, simplify it. So I did that and just cut it down to 6. Just removed a couple of... I kind of have a thing where I do multiple character stories at the same thing, and that's a kind of a bad habit, especially in comics. Just keep it simple, Yeah. Like if there's a story there for the other character, then just do that later as its own thing.
Any stuff in there you're going to save for later, or was it all just like second guessing stuff that you really don't ever need?
Oh no, a lot of it's really cool. It's pretty far out there. Actually, some of it makes the basic concept seem pretty straightforward. So hopefully someday that'll surface somewhere. There's plenty of room for the story to go in other directions, in the future. But I just wanted to keep this one simple and tight.
As you were saying it, there was certain things that popped in my... I can't remember if you're a gamer or not.
Not as much as I used to.
Okay. There's a notion in there that you brought up. It reminded me of a game, Horizon Zero Dawn. There's a group of people who were sun worshippers who couldn't get access to it. Or when people were young, they were sun worshippers or were interested in it. And when they were finally able to, went mad because of it. Is that like an element that comes into it, like a mania about this kind of thing?
It's more of a, like, most people are they've been in this claustrophobic environment for so long that the idea of being exposed in sunlight is so terrifying that they just freeze up and won't do it. So it's about breaking through that psychological barrier. I kind of thought of, at the zoo, there's like, I don't know if they're gazelles or what, but the zoo has a fence that's like this, like it's at a 45-degree angle at the top.
Yeah.
Because the gazelles could easily jump over the fence, but mentally that angle makes them think it's a dome and that they'll hit their heads, even though they wouldn't. And so they never jump, even though they could absolutely escape at any time.
Yeah.
I've always been kind of fascinated with that concept for people. And that's sort of what's happening in Edge of Darkness is there's this, barrier because they're so exposed and vulnerable, right? They've been at the bottom, not the bottom, but they're mid food pyramid tops, right? So they have to literally worry about genuine predators and things like that. And so they've become very fearful. And so it's about overcoming that fear.
What size society are we talking about? Are we talking like a vault-like thing from Fallout, maybe, or a full-on comparison to Atlanta?
I'd say 10,000 people, maybe.
Okay, so it's still a tight. You might know everyone. There's a claustrophobia built in because you've pretty much seen everyone you're ever going to see.
Yeah. It's a very isolated place. I mean, there are other humans out there in their own thing, but it's like illegal. It's kind of a fascist dystopia, actually. It's kind of a fascist theocracy, in fact. But so they don't really they're not allowed to talk to other people legally. It still happens because that's what people do. But it's wildly illegal to trade with other civilizations.
It seems like dystopian futures are the most fun thing to write. That's the one concept I always seem to come up with story ideas for. Mm. Do you enjoy in your scale of writing stuff? Where do you put fucked up future situations?
Edge of Darkness was a lot of fun to write, but it's a much more serious piece than SWAT, and so SWAT was a blast to write, and so it was interesting for sure. I really liked how weird it got in ways that it's kind of anyway, it's too complicated to explain. I'd have to show it, but it's a lot of fun. Writing comics in general is just a blast, but this kind of came to me pretty early on in my comic writing process, and I just banged it out,
Justin, I'm going through your Kickstarter, and I'm noticing your creature feature. Mm-hmm. The Helicorpion.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, could you elaborate on that one? That one actually looks pretty sick.
Yeah, I got it as a test last week, actually. The Helicorpion is a extinct shark that had basically its jaw kind of curled like a saw blade.
Oh, that one. That one's so interesting.
Yeah, that one is really cool. That's one of the suits that you can swim around in. There's like a megalodon, giant squid, that kind of thing. It's... I basically took all of the the Earth's history, all the cool creatures, and just mixed them together. And, oftentimes probably made them way bigger than they were in real life, but,
You got that one that has the light that attracts its prey, and that's sick.
Yeah, the beauty of, it's really fascinating how light works beneath the Edge of Darkness, because it's red doesn't travel as far, so that's the light you use for close-up work. Like the cockeyed squid will float with one eye down and one eye up. The down eye has a little bit of it has this little flashlight, a red flashlight kind of around its eye, so it can look down. And it's also got this huge telescope eye for looking up and trying to find prey. It's a signal, it's a trap, it's camouflage, it's everything down there. So the absence of light makes it all the more important.
Is a big part of these suits the utility of them in this world, or is it the fun to be able to be these things?
No, well, it's absolutely work. If it's the only way they can do anything besides, the pressure down there is so much that you just would die if you were not supported by something. And so I kind of take the I'm sure you've seen The Abyss.
Yeah.
That whole thing where they like drown in the liquid, so they don't have to worry about compression.
Yeah.
So they drown themselves, they plug themselves into the suit, and then the squid, and it sort of provides life support and keeps them warm and things like that.
Mm.
But it's 100% a utility thing. I mean, they kind of get fancy with it, but as we do with anything. But it's 100% about getting shit done. Pardon my French.
Like, and I hear a concept like that, part of my mind starts to think like symbiotes, that kind of thing. Do they have personalities of their own? Is that something you're going to get into later? Because that could be a real clash for each character to try and deal with that mentality.
That would be an interesting idea. I did not take that. I mean, it was basically just you plug in and go.
Skin suit kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's actually pretty interesting. But maybe we might use that.
Run with it.
It's basically you kind of just, you get like a barnacle kind of nerve tap in the back of your head, and you just plug in there and go. So,
Sweet.
Yeah, it's and of course they do have a thing where this is how it would work is I don't know if you like I don't know why I'm having a hard time talking, like the Westminster Dog Show. You've got the purebred stuff. So certain strains or certain breeders are more treasured than others.
Yeah.
So
if you're higher in society, you'll have a better one, or you'll have a more sleek one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Faster, lasts longer, more stamina, something like that.
Yeah, it's an excellent metaphor for societal ills, I guess you could say. He's something to play.
Well, yeah, there is an element of that. Like, Hymo starts out as an eel man, which is sort of the lowest level, and it's just basically a scuba suit. It has no special powers or anything. It doesn't have any of the nerve stuff. So you're just basically in a biological dive suit. And so anything that finds you can just kill you.
Yeah.
Ease. I was snorkeling once in Hawaii, and I was way offshore by myself, and these two reef sharks whipped around the reef, and so they're probably like this long, great white shark looking things, and I'm sure I was in absolutely no danger in reality, but that is scary. Like that is an instant adrenaline drop when you see a couple of pretty sizable sharks come at you. I just curled up like a meatball and tried not to move and panic, and they just swam on past. But it's still, it was an interesting moment of fear.
Well, I know it looks scary every time I see it on nature shows. I have never gotten my ass in the water, and I don't think I ever will. I mean, I would like to swim with a great white once, but I don't think I'd put the money out there to potentially die.
Yeah, the sharks really are. They don't really want to eat you. They got really confused if they take a bite.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely. I don't know. I would have to be in a cage for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I have scuba dived a couple of times, and there's something really terrifying about pulling yourself down a rope where these like giant jellyfish are right over there, and the surge is kind of moving you around. Because if you like fell or lost your grip and the surge pushed you into one, it would sting like that would be bad.
Yeah, that hurt us. That is absolutely one of my biggest fears, is being in water, something floating above your head. Because we're trained to look on a plane in front of us. Mm-hmm. For things to be coming up from under us, that's not so surprising. Like birds, we can hear. You're underwater, you're muffled, and there's this thing floating around you. That is an absolute trigger for me. That is nightmare fuel.
I find it really peaceful, but I mean, I definitely understand like why people would be like, "This is stupid."
It doesn't like stupid. Like I respect the ability to do it, but it's that fear factor for me. It's one of those things I don't think I could ever do. Like I watching people do it. Like I said, like documentaries. I've watched so many documentaries and sat there eating chips. Like that's great. Good for you. I like what you're giving me, but no.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about cave diving. Like that is just I'm never going to do that. Fuck that. Yeah, getting stuck in a cave and running out of the clock, that's just awful. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely elements of fear there, and it was I did a ship dive, and so there was a part where we went into the ship, and even though it was like 20 feet to this giant exit, it still was freaky for me. So I have a weird kind of claustrophobia. It's not triggered by being in a scuba suit, but it is triggered by being in an enclosed space, even if it's huge. Like one time I was in a women's prison cafeteria, so it's like 10,000 square feet, but every door is an airlock and all the glass is bulletproof, right? So I was sitting there just like trying not to freak out because I couldn't leave. If they just decided to leave me in there, I'm done, right? So
a very cold, emotionless place with
Yeah.
all of those other things. Like just gray walls or just monotone walls. Yeah, that's
at least in Missouri, the prisons are built by the same people that make the high schools. Like, no, I'm serious. I'm not. That's not a joke. The
you kind of feel like you're at home. You're having a flashback.
Yeah, not a fun home though. So, yeah, that doesn't help. But no, prisons, they're terrible, dude. I mean, like it's just bad. Don't crime if you can help it. So, there is a actually he gets arrested. Jaimo, the hero, gets arrested for illegally changing jobs because it's a fascist theocracy. And so they ship him off to like basically just this giant larva that sits at the bottom of the ocean. And there's work crews there who have suits, and so that's their punishment. It's just having to live in this larva until their sentence is up. So
That's draconian.
yeah, well they have to share the same dive juice, right? And so like the kidneys of the larva are failing, so everything's got piss and poop and just gross, and so it's pretty brutal.
That does sound like a lot of those medieval tortures. They most of them, and by the end, involves a lot of piss and poop.
Yeah, sanitation, it's hard.
Yeah. Well, actually, when you're torturing, sanitation is your friend. The lack of sanitation. That'll do most of the work for you, from what I've read. How far along are you in it? Actually, everything's written. All the issues are drawn out?
No, we have about 6 completed pages right now that you can see if you go check the Kickstarter out. Leonardo Romanelli did the art. He's very Italian, and he did a really amazing job. I mean, the art I think is extremely interesting, and he's been a great partner, really. So yeah, if we get funding, then he'll be fast. Once it's time to go, he'll get it done in a month or two.
So he just did some proof of concept stuff for you?
Yeah, it's expensive to do these things, so I'm trying to not go bankrupt. So, but we have the 6 issues. We got stickers, and there's a video that Leonardo does where he talks about towards the bottom where he talks about the comic and what it means to him. So there's some fairly interesting stuff happening on the Kickstarter page.
You got something to ask, Joe?
Oh, I was going to say, and that is kickstarter.com/project/edge of darkness.
Just watching the trailer for a second. That was that actual footage, like of an octopus? Okay.
It's a giant squid. Yeah. It's just some public domain footage from I think the National Institute of Oceanic or whatever something. Because obviously paying for that kind of animation would be prohibitive, so I use some public domain footage for effect.
Smart call.
Yeah. So, I'm actually getting I feel like I'm learning quite a bit about iMovie. But anyway, yeah. So it's 6 issues, like I said, sort of a far future biopunk thing. Very interesting art style. I don't know if we could share the screen and I could show it, maybe.
I'm looking at the Kickstarter page right now. Joe shared it to the group, and it is great. It's a great style. It reminds me of Daniel Acuna a bit, who was doing the Avengers recently. He just finished an Avengers run, like a miniseries. That realistic, but still stylistic with a lot of blacks. I do love that style.
Yeah, I'm looking him up right now. I mean, Leonardo's he is a beast, man. Like he's very interesting. If you look at the stuff in like the really high def files, I gasped at some of the depth and the colors. He did an amazing job with it. It's very, very unique style.
Yeah, these pages are great. They make you want the dialogue in there. to move the story along. Like they tell enough as is, but you want to know more about that story just based on some. I haven't been able to actually read the ones that do have dialogue yet, but that is a beautiful style.
Yeah, he's great. He's on Instagram as like Lenn artist 94, I think. But yeah, I mean Leonardo Romanelli, you can find him for sure on Instagram. He does a lot of cool stuff. He's done some Swamp Thing. I mean, I don't think it's out or anything, but he was at least auditioning to do Swamp Thing with Marvel. So you know, he's got some stuff going on.
His style definitely lends it to something like Swamp Thing.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, Edge of Darkness is a pretty extreme version of his style. He's got, you know, every artist has got the, you know, kind of the barometer where you can up it or down it. But his planar stuff is very interesting to look at. So.
What do you got? What's next? You seem like you're a fairly busy man.
Well, I'm working on. I wrote a novel, maybe a decade ago, but it's conceptually it's if Ahab from Moby Dick and Frankenstein from Frankenstein, or the monster, if you want. I think that's pedantic, but we're kind of running around a Lovecraftian universe doing stuff. So it's kind of the weirdest buddy cop you've ever seen, essentially. So it's that one. I wrote the whole thing, and it was, you know, I liked it. But I think most of my concepts translate a lot better to comics, honestly. I really wish I initially wanted to do it as a comic, but I was too cheap to pay an artist at that point. And it was scary to switch over to comics, but eventually I did anyway. And I wish I'd done it a lot earlier, because I think everything I've ever done is just way better as a comic. Or would have been better as a comic.
How long ago did you finish that story?
Shoot.
I know for myself, going back anything more than 5 years can feel embarrassing. Do you look at your old work and kick yourself in the ass? Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, everybody does. Let's see. Well, I don't know if that would be even helpful. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I wrote it in 2020. No, that can't possibly be right, actually. No, it was done way before then. It's probably been a decade, but I mean, it's a little crusty. But you know, the bones are there for me to take and use and kind of reconfigure in a simpler way, and just do it that way.
Does it almost feel like rewriting someone else's work, or do you remember where you were in your head when you wrote this stuff and kind of think like you did back then?
I think I remember quite a bit of it. Like earlier today, I was working on it, and I was like, I had a title for this one book or whatever. It was a scientific study, but I knew it was there somewhere, but I had absolutely no idea where it was, so I had to go hunt it up. But I have a pretty good idea of some things, but I do definitely have to refresh my memory as well. But I also don't want to like do a point for point remake, because so I kind of you got to clean up with comics. You got to keep them simpler, more direct, more power. Like you have fewer threads, but they need to be like more powerful threads, if that makes sense. So I'm going to trim it, quite a bit. And I think that might have been one of my flaws as a novelist, is I just sort of get into the nerd weeds too much sometimes, and it's too complicated for people to follow.
I was worried about that too.
Yeah. So with comics, you can convey all kinds of weird stuff, like with the squid suit, right? You could spend 5,000 words trying to explain that to somebody, or you can just draw it and then instantly get it from the drawing, instead of trying to explain, kind of a weird thing like that. So hopefully that'll help. I mean, I'm only on issue 3 right now, and it has been a bit of a battle to get kind of revved up, because you're right. Like when you go back to an old project, it's sort of like, I don't know, reheating some food that doesn't reheat very well sometimes, I guess. A little difficult to get back into the groove, but it's I think it's an idea that is worth it.
Definitely sounds interesting. I look forward to it. I think everyone else, when you told us the concept.
Yeah,
Sorry.
It is very weird, but it's. I love Moby Dick and I love Frankenstein, and I feel like those characters would have not as written, because they're both horrible monologuists. They'd just be like going on for page after page if you wrote them like they were written in the book. But the way I envision them, I think they have a lot of interesting chemistry.
They're both very grumpy, so they wouldn't play off of each other positively for most of the time.
Well, I mean, the way I see the monster is basically, he's really desperate for affection, and he's got borderline personality disorder out the wazoo because of how traumatic his life's been, but he really wants to have a friend. And I think Ahab, the way I view Moby Dick is Ahab is like an obsessed idealist, where he's just mad at the universe for being as crappy as it is, like the way it is, right? And to him, the whale symbolizes God, pretty much, and so he's like trying to take revenge on God for the entire world sucking. And so that's kind of my concept for the pairing is that, I guess. He's not obsessed with the whale anymore, though. But that's all. That'll all be in.
But he needs something to obsess about because he's Ahab. He's just that kind of personality.
Yeah, he's what I'm doing with him is he's immortal.
Okay.
Like he feels pain, all the pain, but he will never die. And so he gets stuck into like all this horrible situations where it's just agony, and he just has to power through. And that's kind of his punishment for being obsessive, I guess.
It's a great self-destruction metaphor right there. We're running short on time, unfortunately. We want to make sure everyone knows it's Kickstarter for Edge of Darkness. How much time do we have left on it?
Not a lot. I think it ends on the 22nd, so 12 days. It's I don't know. We'll see. I'm not super optimistic, but even if it doesn't make this time, I'm definitely going to be continuing with it. It'll be out eventually.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Just seems like this would help a lot. And we hope some of our listeners will click and contribute. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Story sounds great. Art looks great. So we're not our usual show. We're not going to end it the usual way. Just going to say the opinions of the Nerdy's crew are idiotic and poorly thought out, but knowing where next week's would be far more insulting. It wasn't even that idiotic or poorly thought out. This was a well-honed interview this week.
Yes.
It was nice. A good time had by most. Can we say all?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, good time had by all. So in the classic Nerdy's fashion, fuck bye.
Fuck bye.
Namaste, fuck bye.
Because of the end of civilization, the Clamp Cable Network now leaves the air. We hope you have enjoyed our programming, but more importantly, we hope you have enjoyed life.